fed into our neural circuitry that then creates chemical reactions that create a reality for us, the same as a drug. These people are gods. Pop icons are put out in front of us to be worshipped and to be tithed to, similarly to the way a church puts a god in front of a congregation, so that they are the object of worship and desire and adoration, and people give money to these gods, the Babylonian cults. And these pharaohs, corporate heads, priests of Ra, these corporate cult centers are no different than Nike or the cult centers, Britney Spears, and these demigods that we have that are put in front of us as objects of worship by people behind the curtain, the wizard behind the curtain today. So very few people get on the Yellow Brick Road and actually go through the turmoil, the terrible ordeals and the difficult effort of coming to the conclusion and the realization and the truth that beyond our reality lies another reality. The resistance, the wall of smoke, are those defense mechanisms which disallow us from admitting to ourselves that for so long we have been purchasing, buying into nonsense.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
In this new world, such dangerous currents have swept along faster than our efforts to contain them. And that is why we cannot afford to be divided. No one nation, no matter how large or powerful, can defeat such challenges alone.
Three interlocking city-states that are going to comprise the world government involve an Asian Union, the European Union, and the American Union. And here we got the European Union Parliament building. And we have the coin with Europa on there, which it says in Greek Europa. And then we have Europa, the myth of her on the bull. Zeus is the bull. She's riding off. And we have the designer image of the Tower of Babylon, the image of the Parliament building. It's designed after this image, which is the legend of the Tower of Babel. It's crumbled. And here we see an artistic, Renaissance artist representation of that, the Tower of Babel, the biblical story. And here's the designer poster for the EU, propaganda poster for the EU, showing about their new building they're building. And we see the pentagrams. Notice those upside down pentagrams. And the designer type of logo they have with the people with the blockheads. They're all blockheaded, even the babies are blockheaded. In Europe, many tongues, one voice. That's the insignia of Babylonian Empire, of coming down to change the voices up. That's what God said He was doing. So they're replicating that building, and that's actually what the building looks like. And this is what it's all about, the capstone missing. And this is the Tower of Babel that European Union is all about. Here's Europa on the bull, just like they have on their coins. Europa riding off into Europe, the wide-eyed, the enlightening one, the enlightened, the one that bears the light. And we know that this is Lucifer in Christian myth, Christian mythologies. We have Lucifer, the light bearer. And the occult knowledge in the new Luciferian rebellion is simply that God was keeping man enslaved in the garden, and Lucifer enlightened man and freed him from God's tyranny. So they flip it around, and they preach this as an enlightening doctrine, and they trap people inside this, and this is the new Luciferian rebellion. And this is how Christianity is going to be destroyed. And this is Lux Ferro, which is Latin, and that means light. I bear. Lux Ferro. I bear light. I bear the light, and that's Lucifer. And here we have the Anunnaki, and we have the same symbol of that in the banks. And they use this symbol because they are this elite group of people, this bloodline class, using the same symbolism of the ancient cultures, of the double-winged with the sun symbol. So and here's Virgin records with the doppelganger and the black heart, and the Virgin Atlantis, which is the virgins of Atlantis. And we see the tree and the whole agrarian scene, and we have Union Square next door over there with this Virgin inside the red disc. and the red line, blood line, and above that the solar signet, the solar sphere. And essentially this is about this scene, the primal scene of Adam and Eve and the serpent. And all the symbolism behind this and what actually went on right here. And it's about a bloodline. And we see the symbolism here of the red circle, which is the bloodline. We see it in front of the White House. We see it in all these corporate logos, Citibank. And what we're talking about here is the city of Babylon, the building of the city of Babylon, and the people of Babylon. It's done through mythologies and through propaganda. And we see how it was done by Pan, because we know language, the power of language and music. We know the fasci symbol. We know all these things are in place. All the symbols are in place. The propaganda ministers are up there talking about the stories they're supposed to talk about. And these are wizards. These politicians are priests. And psychology even tells us that this is mainstream psychology saying that our limbic system and most of our unconscious brain functions and neural circuitry is unconscious. It tends to activate through unconscious stimuli, and that's about 90% of what influences our actual behavior and our thoughts. So we're taking all this in. A lot of it's visual stimulus, auditory stimulus that is through advertising, through just things that we just think we're censoring out, but we actually are not censoring them out. Our mind, our unconscious part of our mind is taking a complete record of all this. These things, these slogans, these images can be then drawn on by people in power, and our emotions can then be tapped at any given moment, because we forget about things that they remember we forgot about. That's sorcery. It's essentially like the three blind mice, and that's why magic is so powerful, because magicians seek to influence people without people knowing they're being influenced. Magicians make people think they don't exist at all. That way they can operate in the wide open, and people deny what they see. They're conditioned and educated to believe that these things don't exist. They're ostracized when they show signs that they do believe they exist. And that's how mind manipulation is done. It's an easy dynamic. Basically, mind manipulation happens through opening the door into somebody's heart by promising to fulfill their dreams, providing senses of urgencies, and coming up with emotional topics that need an urgent remedy. You can't leave people time to think. People must be separated when they think differently, and we know that happens. And we know that we're surrounded by propaganda to help us along, to think a certain way. It's done by gaining information about people and targeting their weaknesses and using this information to manipulate them. And this is done in the statistics. We're talking about statistics here. The bell curve. Once you have statistics on people, you can absolutely control their behavior. That's what science is all about. Psychology is absolutely all about this. Once you know statistics about a population, you can have them eat, you can know what they like, you can know what they think. Once you know what they think and like, you can claim godhood. You can put your finger on their pulse. You can claim that you're a messenger of God. You know exactly what they want. You make people forget about these things by the parade, by the circus. You have them wave a flag around. You have them induce childhood games, encourage dependencies and conformity, give them an enemy that they can all band around, and discourage at all costs autonomy. You don't want free thinkers. You don't want people thinking about the things that we're talking about inside this video. You want groupthink.
No one nation, no matter how large or powerful, can defeat such challenges alone.
Develop, most of all, an us versus them mentality. Scapegoats.
Poorly secured nuclear material in the former Soviet Union, or secrets from a scientist in Pakistan, could help build a bomb that detonates in Paris. The poppies in Afghanistan come to Berlin in the form of heroin. The poverty and violence in Somalia breeds the terror of tomorrow.
Scapegoats are an important, fundamental piece to the recipe of inducing fear in somebody. It's all about inducing fear.
Dangers that cannot be contained within the borders of a country or